besties, my name is Maddie and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be going over the 12 books that I read in January. I feel like I had a pretty good reading month. I found a few more 5 stars, which is great to start my year off with. So I read 5 books on my Kindle, 2 physical copies, and then I listened to 5 audiobooks. So out of the 10 books that I put on my TBR, I read 7 of them, which I think is great. The only 3 I didn't get to is Blood of Hercules, Foxglove, and Stolen Air, but I did start Foxglove. I just didn't finish it. I'm like halfway through it and I'm just doing a soft DNF for right now. So let's jump into the 12 books that I did read in January. So I got an ARC for Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams, and then as soon as this book came out, I went and purchased it because it is a 5-star book for me. I had such a good time with this one. So this follows our 2 main characters, Emily and Jack, and they are basically rivals. So they both work at the same school being teachers, and she just does not like him for certain reasons that you find out into this book, and they just always butted heads, and it's a cute little like rivals to lovers, hate to love type thing going on. I love Sarah Adams' stories. I find her characters so real and not always likable, but you feel for them. Like I felt like Emily could have been a not likable character, but I fell in love with her just because of how she acted and her personality and things like that. And I feel like in Sarah's books, she finds such a way of creating like a found family that you truly deeply feel for these characters and you feel like they are part of your life, at least to me. And I cannot wait to read book 4. Then I listened to Love in Other Cages by Amelia Ares. I rated this book 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favorite, but I think I messed myself up because I didn't know that there was a prequel type of book to this. So I got this as like one of my first advanced listener copies. And ELK, is that how you say it? I don't know, we say ARCs, but then I don't know if ELK is the right word. Not a clue, okay? But I got my first like audio listen thing. And I had no idea that it was part of this series, I guess. But the story was good. I just felt like it was going 2 different ways throughout most of the book. So you follow our 2 main characters, and our FMC gets like broken into or something happens with her family, and these people are basically after them now, and then she ends up being taken, and now it's her boyfriend's job or guy friend's job, who is the other POV in this book, and he is going to try to find her, I guess. I really don't know what was going on at any point because it was really like 2 different books at all times, and it left on a cliffhanger as well. So I really don't know. So I might have messed myself up by doing it that way. So take my rating what you will, because it could have been all my fault why my rating was a little bit lower for this one. Then I got another ARC for Someday Not Soon by Amelia Chasen. So this is best friend's brother and a little bit of second chance, and it's told in past and present timelines, and you get dual POV. So this follows Jude and Ella, and in the past timelines you have them kind of building a little friendship, a little relationship in secret in a way, and then in the present timeline it's like 10 years later or something like that, and they're all getting back together for someone's wedding, and it's the first time that they're going to see each other in 10 years, and it's how they're going to work through that. And I found it so cute. I love her writing style. It really gives me like very much like Sarah Adams writing. Like it flows very easy. I loved the first one in this series, and I think this one was no different, and I cannot wait for book 3, I believe. I enjoy her writing style. I enjoy her stories and her characters, and I feel myself like gravitating towards them in a good vibe when I'm reading her books. Then I read Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I rated this book 4 stars, and we read it for a book club, and it was wild. It was so much darker than I expected it to be. Book club was interesting, I'll tell you that. So this follows 2 sisters, and it's told in dual POV, but it's 3rd person, and it's their story on how their sister went missing, and their sister went missing like 10 years ago or something like that, and now in present day another girl has gone missing kind of in the same way, similar vibes, things like that. So they're kind of thrown back into kind of what happened to their sister and where she is now, and it was so good. One of the plot twists in this book, I was like, BFFR, like I don't really vibe with that, but I feel like overall the story was good and it was entertaining, and it gave us so much to talk about during book club. Then I got an ARC for Endgame by Indy Valentine. I rated this book 5 stars. Phenomenal. I had such a good time with this, and I cannot wait for the rest of her series. So this follows Dakota and Calloway, but they call him Cal, and it is their romance. So she is going to be his baseball team's photographer, and he plays for some baseball team. And it's brother's best friend, it's slow burn. You have a little bit of workplace romance in there as well because she is the team's photographer. I loved it. I loved the story. I loved the writing. I felt so sucked into it, and it gave me such Liz Tomford vibes, and I love that woman with my entire heart and soul. Her books are some of my favorites to read, and I feel like that's why I was so drawn into this story, this character. Also, the mouth on this man, filthy, but I was loving it, sweating the whole time. I really can't say anything else about it, but it was so good, and I highly recommend checking it out if you have not done so yet. Then I listened to From Sand and Ash by Amy Harmon. I rated this book 4 stars, and I listened to this book for another book club. I enjoyed it. I thought the story was very moving, very touching. It's basically dealing with World War II. So this follows Ava and Angelo, and they meet when they are small children, and they have very different views on life, very different religious backgrounds, things like that. And as they get older, they always stay like really close, but life kind of leads them into different directions based on the time frame that they're living in and what's acceptable and what's not. So this takes place in 1943 in Italy, I believe. I don't really want to say anything without spoiling a few of like the little plot twists that happen in it. But again, it is a little bit of a tougher read, but I enjoyed the story. I liked the timeline. I enjoyed how the book and the story progressed throughout time and how their relationship changed and how their views kind of changed and stuff like that. I thought it was really good, and I'm very excited to talk about it at our next book club. Then I listened to Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. I rated this book 4 stars. Those follows Chani and Gabe, and Chani gets the opportunity to interview this really hot movie star, Gabe, and they kind of hit it off, have a little something, I guess you could say, go on, and then they don't ever talk again. And then it is now 10 years later, and she's doing another interview, and they are now 2 totally different people kind of going about their lives. And it is that little story. I found it fun. I really enjoyed the audiobook, so if you have that opportunity, I would highly suggest you listen to it because I thought it was very good. But I had the physical copy on my shelf for forever, and it came available on Libby, so I was like, might as well listen to it, and I was really glad I did that. No. Okay, so then I read Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I read this book 4 stars, okay? Not too bad, but it wasn't my favorite out of this series. So I loved Fourth Wing. I really enjoyed Iron Flame. I think I still gave that book 5 stars, but I was kind of over it a little bit. And then this one is just, I don't know. I don't know if it was a me problem. I don't know if I need to go back and reread it. It just didn't hit how I wanted it to hit. And I don't know if that was me putting too much onto this book, because that could be my fault, you know? So this entire series follows Violet, and she is at Basgiath, which is a war college, and there's dragons, and a bunch of stuff goes on. And I can't tell you anything that happens in this book because it would spoil book 1 and 2 for you. But if you have not read this series, I would recommend. We'll see how it goes in book 4. But book 4 I don't think is coming out for quite some time, so don't be in a rush if you don't need to be. You know, I'm glad I read it. There's a lot of world building. There was a lot of new characters introduced in here that I was really thrown off by. So I might do a reread of the entire series to kind of see if I read them back to back to back, if that would help my understanding a little bit. And then maybe it is just a me problem and not the book. This book took me by surprise. So I have Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder. I read this book 4.5 stars. It is so good. I don't even know what series this is going to be called or what series it is called. We're going to call it the Fox Brothers series because that's what I'm going to call it. I think it actually could be correct as well. I don't know, dude. So this follows Lainey and Grant, and Lainey witnesses something very bad, and she has to be put in basically witness protection to keep her identity safe and to keep her safe, basically. So she ends up at this bourbon distillery in Kentucky where the Fox family owns this distillery. There she meets Grant, and he's real grumpy, doesn't understand why she's there, doesn't care why she's there, and she kind of likes poking the bear a little bit. And it is their little budding friendship to relationship. You get a little bit of start of a found family in this. There's romantic suspense. And this series is going to follow all of the Fox brothers, I believe, but the town thinks the Fox brothers are cursed because every woman they have ever loved ends up dying. So there's a lot of bad juju surrounding these boys and the women that they love. So that also adds another little aspect in this book as well. It was so good. I cannot wait to read Bourbon and Secrets, but this one I highly recommend. I don't see enough people talking about this series or these books. Highly recommend, and they're all on KU. Then I read Hidden Pictures by Jason Rukulek. I read this book 4 stars. So this follows an addict who is kind of fixing her life up, and she applies to be this family's nanny. And there she meets this little boy named Teddy, and Teddy takes a liking to drawing, and he draws really cute things. He draws like bunnies and butterflies and them all hanging out, but then he also starts drawing this woman being brutally murdered in the woods, and he's a really good artist for being 5 years old. Mallory, our FMC, is kind of like, oh, something's wrong with this child, and it's that story. And it was so spooky. The pictures in this, jump scare. Every time they popped up, I was shocked. Every time I was like flipping the page, like squinting, because I was spooked. I couldn't read it by myself, and I could not read it at night. But the plot twist towards the end, didn't really vibe with it. But other than that, I thought it was a really well done little like thriller spooky book, and I enjoyed the picture aspects in this so much. Then I listened to Fake Out by Eden Finley. I rated this book 3.5 stars. So this is an MM romance with kind of like bi awakening, if you will. So this man breaks up with his high school girlfriend and tells her that he's gay because he doesn't know how else to break up with her. So he has lived this lie in this town for about 10 years and telling everyone that he is gay. He then runs into said ex-girlfriend one night at a bar, and she is celebrating her bachelorette party. She's like, oh my gosh, you should come to my wedding. It would be perfect. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll bring my boyfriend, the boyfriend that I don't have because I'm not gay. And his girl best friend is like, listen, my brother's gay. Take him. And it's going to be that little relationship. I thought it was cute. The audiobook was really good. I just felt like these characters got a tad bit annoying at times for me. Other than that, I was having a good time. I love an MM book, and I really enjoyed this one. Then I finished out my month listening to So Rare by Abby Millsap. I rated this book 3 stars, and I believe it's the 3rd in this series, and I don't think I'm going to be continuing on with it. So it's a why choose romance, but there's like more characters added in almost every single time, and the plot twist that happened at the end of this book really did me in, and I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So this basically follows our FMC, and she has a boyfriend at the beginning of book 1, and then they break up, and then she starts kind of fake dating his best friend a few years later, and now they're going to kind of share and do like a why choose situation, and then we get a few other characters involved. There's a lot going on, and I was so confused at points because I was like, where are these people at? Because this is making no sense. But I mean, to each their own. If you love it, you love it, but I just don't think this book was for me. So those are the 12 books that I read in January. I feel like I had a great start of my year. I put a pretty decent dent in my TBR, so I'm pretty happy with that. Please let me know what you read in January. Let me know what your favorite read of the month was, and as always, thank you so much for watching today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Love yous!